Tahoe. It's a true honor for us to share songs, these ancient songs, old ceremonial songs that we're singing today. We're asking the spirits to come join us. This very special announcement that we have and what we're doing here today. We wanted to bring it back and have also our ceremonial people in to do these songs. These songs are sung in ancient ceremonies. And these ceremonies are to bring us together in a good way, to share teachings in a good way, and to share medicines in a good way. So on behalf of our my brothers, Sundancers here from White Eagle Sundance, we wanted to share these songs for you. So how about a big round of applause for our hand drummers here today. Our lead singer today was Richard Taylor. Richard Taylor, all the way from Shubby, Indian Brook, Septanagad, Sisabaganagadi. Just learning that. So it's also, too, Gary Joseph, who's married into the Nevin clan, the Nevin family in that territory as well. As well, myself, Jeff Ward, from Member 2 and formerly of Metabanagia. So it's an honor to sing for you guys here today. So, and we're also going to do another one at the end, so just to let you guys know. So, with further ado, it's a beautiful day out there. Good afternoon, everybody. And we welcome you here to Jabukduk, to Halifax. It's a true honor to have everybody here. So if you're in the back, we'd ask you to come on up and have a seat at this time. Now, with ice rain hitting Cape Breton, the ice storm alert issued last night in southern Quebec and parts of eastern Ontario, we are, this afternoon, as the old saying goes, going with the flow. Some of us flowed right in, either through our canoes. Pretty well had to bring a birch bark canoe to come in, or skates. We arrived here today. Now, guests, and we have some pre-recorded greetings from near and far. And we also have today some very special guests today in attendance with us today. As you know, in all gatherings, we start off with a song, but we also start off with a prayer. And to lead us in prayer, it's going to be great honor to introduce our elder to start us in prayer. It's an elder and one of my mentors since I was wee. And it's a true honor. Now, few have led the life that our elder, Doug Knockwood, has lived. He's a highly respected elder in the Mikmaq territory and one of Canada's premier addictions recovery counselors. The story of his life is one of imaginable colonial trauma, recovery, and hope. A member of the Canadian Special Forces, an alcohol and drug counselor for decades, and respected elder of the Mi'kma'ki Debert Cultural Center Elders Advisory Council. And Doug has also received a doctorate in humanities from Acadia in 2015. It's a great honor to welcome our elder, Doug Knockwood.
Thank you very much. It's certainly an honor to be here this afternoon to deliver the prayer, to help in all of us our mentality to improve by working with one another and to make a better road for our young people to travel this life that we've laid out for them. Now they're able to expand on it. And I'm so grateful that my health allowed me to be here this afternoon to say this prayer. I wish each and every one of you continued success in your endeavor, whatever that may be. If you're working to better our community, has Aboriginal people, Mikmaq people, then, you know, my hat is off to you. And I hope that the interaction that will go on this afternoon will help to tie those binds together, that you're able to work together to help to make a better community, a better population in all our Native communities. I thank you so much for this honor. Sakama musik iskrieng manakam sitami bibani muluk chide baon. Bibani muluk chide baon maon dana kasi abokon masi stepka. Yang misbana abokon masi nindem. Ang kasi abokon maon bia. Tatu jina abokon masi nina. Anado jukisi suar destan basiko eh. Akte ka dawal ka desisnyo. Ak ef desisnyo dan basiko Aku keluk no kitip dan dia. Kisna bigwal kalado mugisi mo. Kan nige swad wek akta dokol gwega. Nam gis dokol gades no dan basiktet. Megi bolali yogo chita begiskin teta. Aka good luck a while lo. O chitim sit going nige. Thank you, Walali of Tahoe.
Walalin, thank you very much to our elder, Walalin Nidap, my good friend, my mentor, and my elder. It's always honored to be in your presence and to be with you days such as today. Now I'd like to do a shout out to all the kids that are out there. We have kids that are here. How about make some noise, kids? Yay! Unfortunately, these are the kids that went to school today and their classes never got canceled. However, in Cape Breton, different story. So the ice storm had canceled classes, but I'm sure they're all online watching us right now. But we do have 2 schools online. As you see right there, I believe, is that Picto? That's LSK. LSK in the house. Everybody say hi. And this is Picto. Everybody say hi, Picto. All right, excellent. That was awesome. So they are live and they are here. Now, since time immemorial, the cornerstone of survival of Indigenous people in Canada has been one of innovation. Innovation that consistently utilizes scientific methods in analyzing, critical thinking, creativity, and observation in all areas of life. Now, building on this heritage of scientific capacity, Ilnuig is proud, as are we all, to be rolling out a new innovative digital learning initiative. Without further delay, I would like to introduce Chris Gugu, also known as my identical cousin. As you could tell, we're separated at birth. And as he arises to the challenge, and he is the Chief Operating Officer of Ilnuig. So without further ado, how about a big round of applause for Chris Gugu. What's your step? Okay.
Well, all in Chicana. Thank you, my brother. Well, all in Doug. Asan Mosuya. Well, all your baby dog Jiminok. Ganamo Ardijuk. Honorable Scott Bryson, Honorable Darren Fisher, Sakamok, Akazugu, Achmajwajish. Ulnueg, Deluet Walalioch. Achwalalio Kilo, the First Nation helped us, Nasputioch. Sibiganegadik, Achpik Tiguach. Thank you, Doug, for the prayers. It's always, as Jeff said, it's great to hear elders speak in our own tongue and to lead us in prayer. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, educators, Honorable Scott Bryce and Honorable Darren Fisher, our chiefs, elders, and our distinguished guests today, our kids, and those out there as well. On behalf of Ulnuig, I would like to thank you for coming and joining us via the First Nation Help Desk and the web through Facebook and YouTube. I want to especially acknowledge the First Nation Help Desk in enabling the connection with the schools today, and especially for their patience and professionalism in working with us to make this happen. We're here today to announce the launch of the Mikmaq Youth Digital Skills Education Initiative. Through this program, all children and youth in Mi'kmaq communities in Nova Scotia will have access to innovative resources to prepare them for careers in digital field. Some facts. More than 82% of all jobs in the Canadian economy today require digital skills. Indigenous children are the youngest and fastest growing demographic in Canada. Between 2005 and 2011 alone, the Mi'kmaq population in Nova Scotia increased by 44%. Indigenous children in Canada face the greatest digital divide in the country. Digital divide is the gap between those that do have access to modern information and communications technology and those that have restricted or no access. And we're here today to close that gap. And we are closing that gap by innovation. Innovation in the context of partnerships. Who would have thought last year that Ulnuig would have partnered with the Regional Chief Morley Gugu's office, Sail Training International, the Halifax Water Development Corporation, Three Things Consulting out in Ontario, and the Native Friendship Center here in Halifax, and a Dutch ship from the Netherlands called the Glidden Leeuw to sail 45 Indigenous youth from across Canada across the Atlantic Ocean. And just to prove to them, the kids, that they were capable of anything. If 5 years ago you told me that I would be working with the Canadian Space Agency, I would have imagined working with its procurement department, asking for increased business opportunities for the Aboriginal business community, not in the area of education. But our partnerships, are an example of how we as Canadians can work together in this era of reconciliation to create transformational change. Transformational change doesn't just impact today. It impacts tomorrow, causing ripples, and in this case, through space and time. Because isn't that what reconciliation is all about? It's not just about giving, but it's more about receiving. Receiving Indigenous communities in their real past. Receiving Indigenous communities in the present. But more importantly, receiving these Indigenous youth here and out there into the future. So that they too are able to take advantage of the opportunities and participate equally in our broader economy, in our broader community. These types of partnerships take courage, they take compassion, and they take empathy. And it forces us not to be complacent, not to accept things as they are today. At Ulnuig, we dare to dream big. And we are honored to be partnering with a number of organizations, educational institutions, in our communities to work together in the area of digital skills and coding, to create the bridge over that digital gap. Bridging is about healing. Reconciliation is about receiving and healing. We believe in your dreams, and we believe in your dreams. Let's make them happen. Olalio.
So once again, how about a big round of applause for Chris? At this time, I want to bring one of our ministers, Minister Fisher, to stand, please, at this time to address this amazing initiative. I'm so excited. It's just going in so many directions, but I want it to be introduced in a good way. So, Minister Fisher.
Thank you very much. Where are the kids? Put your hands up, kids. Okay, where are the young at heart? Okay, who here in the young person group knows what coding means? Okay, so meet me out back later and you can explain it to me because I have no understanding. I'm 52 and I got to tell you, I've got one of my friends back here says I have, let's see if I get this right, a Commodore 64, what is it? Is that what it's called, a Commodore 64? So it's an old computer, so I'm a little bit behind the times. So if anyone here, any of you young people, and I would love to see that group of kids in the school in the background here so we could all see them again. Are we able to bring them up again? Because, I mean, what a great thing to look at. If I have to spend my day with adults, and that's no fun. So if I had a chance to spend my day in that school in Pictou or that other school there with those young people, that's where I'd want to be. And I'm sure Scott would agree. So my job today is to introduce my friend, my colleague, and probably a brilliant computer mind, the Honourable Scott Bryson, who is President of the Treasury Board and a Member of Parliament for King's Hands. Now, when you think about the President of the Treasury Board, it sounds pretty fancy, but essentially he's the guy that carries the checkbook. So you can put it all into common terms when you think that Scott Bryson carries the checkbook, and he's the guy that ensures that all government agencies and all government departments have the resources they need to do the good work that our government is trying to do. So he served previously as the Minister of Public Works and Government Services and as Receiver General of Canada. So this is a guy that's had a lot of really cool titles in his political history. But again, keep in mind, he's the guy that carries a checkbook. If you need money from the federal government, it has to go through the Honourable Scott Bryson. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Scott Bryson.
Thank you very much, Darren. I'm delighted to be here. And Darren was being sort of self-deprecating in terms of his understanding of the digital world. And in fact, he told me the other day that he said, Scott, I really think this internet thing's going to get big. and good afternoon, everyone. Elder Knockwood, it's great to see you. Quay, it's great to be here as part of this very important announcement. Darren mentioned titles. My most important title is Daddy, and as a father of two 4-year-old daughters. And it is in that spirit that we're talking about investing in young people, in children today. And that is really exciting. And I want to thank Chris Gugu and Onoweg for hosting us today and for leading this initiative, this important digital initiative, this important investment in young Mi'kmaq children and their futures here in Nova Scotia. And I want to welcome the children who are here with us today and the children who are in other parts of our province. This is a very exciting day. You are the future scientists, engineers, doctors, maybe even video game developers with laptops and tablets and smartphones everywhere. Today's children are surrounded by technology. Our children are growing up through a time of great change where technology is disrupting all facets of our lives, and where technology has become very much part of our everyday life. Digital technology is everywhere. Our children can't escape it, but with the right education, they can help shape it. And making sure that our kids, our future leaders, have the digital skills they need to work with these technologies and to shape them is absolutely critical to setting them up for success. Digital literacy is the new essential skill for the jobs of the future. It was once the ABCs, today it's HTML. And employers, I'll explain that, Darren, afterward, and we can talk about it. Employers are demanding digital skills and coding as they search for the best talent possible. And these essential skills are teaching our kids how to problem solve and how to think critically. They're forcing them to work in teams, to understand the value of technology that facilitates our everyday lives. And so to nurture digital literacy and a culture of learning quick and sometimes failing fast, our government has launched CanCode. CanCode is going to give over 1 million Canadian students from kindergarten to grade 12 and their teachers the opportunity to learn coding and digital skills. It's a $50 million program launched by our government to help pave the path for Canada's future leaders, our future digital leaders. CanCode will help provide over 63,000 teachers across the country with the tools and the skills to teach Canadian youth how to code. This is very important. First of all, coding is not just for computer scientists anymore. It's not even a stretch to say that coding is really the next big job, not just in Canada, but globally. Industries ranging from automotive and agri-food to the life sciences and clean tech, they all need coders, given the increasingly digital nature of everything. Secondly, we need to build on our partnership with our Indigenous people, and we need to invest in Indigenous youth. We have our fastest growing and youngest population in Canada in our Indigenous communities. It is in all our interests. We all have a vested interest, whether you're part of an Indigenous community or not. We all have a vested interest in the success of Indigenous youth. And these investments are going to build greater prosperity for all Canadians, particularly as Indigenous youth pursue careers in science or technology, math, or engineering. CanCode will help ensure that more young Canadians broadly of all backgrounds get the tools they need for a prosperous future. And that brings me to today's announcement. I'm pleased on behalf of my colleague, the Honourable Navdeep Bains, Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development, to announce that Onawig Development Corporation will receive $1 million of CanCode funding, enabling 20 teachers to teach coding to 8,700 Mi'kmaq children across Nova Scotia. Total CanCode investments in Nova Scotia will enable 4,800 teachers to teach coding to 64,000 Nova Scotian children. There will be specific announcements on these other CanCode projects in the days ahead, but I don't believe any one of these announcements better reflects the central priority of our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau than this one, because no relationship. No, well, you can continue. That was fine. That was fine. No relationship is more important to our government than the relationship with our Indigenous peoples. And reconciliation can't be just words. It's got to be investments in the future of our Indigenous children. Our government is committed to supporting our shift to the digital economy. CanCode is just one of many digital skills programs that are focused on providing all Canadians with access to the skills they need for digital technology success. Our long-term goal is that Canada will be the most innovative country in the world. But these kinds of investments will mean that we're not just going to be innovative in terms of digital, but we're going to be inclusive in terms of shared prosperity with all Canadians. And CanCode's going to be important to that. I want to wish good luck to all of the students who are going to be part of this. I think this is just tremendously exciting as you move forward. And I want to thank you, and I also want to thank all the teachers and mentors in this room who are nurturing these brilliant young minds. I am just really proud of what's happening here today, and I'm looking forward to actually visiting some classrooms and to meeting some of the young students here and seeing your progress. As I said, as being a dad and having my own children gives me a real personal interest in the children of other people, as it ought to, and I'm just, for a whole bunch of reasons, I'm just really not just happy to be here today, but excited to be here today as part of this. Now, I'm here to introduce Chief Sid Peters today as well. Sid is leading an economic renaissance at the Glooscap First Nation. I'm proud of Glooscap First Nation and the important work that is being done there now. The entrepreneurial leadership provided by Sid and his team is a real game changer for Glooscap First Nation. And I would ask that you join me in welcoming my friend and the leader, the chief of Glooscap First Nation, Chief Sid Peters. And Walalio.
Well, that was a very fine introduction. Thank you very much, Minister. It's really nice to be here. It's really awesome to see the young children here that bust in from Millbrook and welcome. I know that when I left Truro probably a little over an hour ago, of course it started to freeze and rain, and you drive down the road about 2 kilometers and your windshield freezes up, and I text Chris, I said, I'm on my way, but I'm not sure what the weather is going to be like. But that's what we kind of experience here in our great province of Nova Scotia. But today, of course, I'd like to say welcome everybody, and thank you very much for having me come today. As the co-chair of the Assembly of Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Chiefs, of course, I would really like to commend Olnawig and Chris Gugu and Todd, on bringing this great initiative forward, which is going to benefit our children tremendously. It's, as the ministers have spoken, that it's so exciting to see this initiative to come to our communities and come to our schools. And it's so nice to see, the children on the teleconference listening in. And it's so important to see how the technology has moved forward from the Commodore 64, I think it was. Isn't that what it was? But it's interesting. I remember probably 15, 20 years ago, and back then I was working with the Native Council, and I see Florence here. It's nice to see Florence. Hi, Florence. I was looking at a document, and it was interesting. It was talking about the internet and talking about how changes, and talking about how years ago, of course, you would go down the road to do a home visit or whatever it might be, and then you were it was nice and quiet because you were on your own. Then all of a sudden they talked about the digital thing, and then they talked about the cell phones. And I remember the first time I bought cell phones for my staff, and then at Christmas time, one of my staff members' partner couldn't come, so she decorates up her cell phone and so on and so forth. But what I was getting at is the way how things have moved so quickly. It's interesting in how internationally we see how things are happening so quickly. A lot of times people say, it's amazing how things have changed in a sense that, I thought about it yesterday driving down the road, and I see a tractor trailer off the road, there's somebody with a phone kind of videoing it, you know. By then, I already passed 3 RCMP going the other way, and they were coming to it, but the digital time or whatever is so quick and so fast, you know, and our young children or whatever of the day, you'll see them, you know, on their phones, talking, chatting, and they seem like Instagram, they've got so much on the go, I don't know how they keep it all organized. But getting back to the old days when we used to work, we used to be able to travel around and had some peace, but not no longer. It doesn't matter where we go, you know. But it's really important, and it's really nice to see how things are moving forward, and it's really nice to see the federal government, you know, the Prime Minister of the day, how he's been so supportive to the First Nations. And it's really exciting as one of the chiefs here in Nova Scotia to see that support on the government side. And it's not very often, you know, at the AFN meetings when you have the Prime Minister come in and get three standing ovations during his speech. It was really rewarding to see that. So I better get back to the speech that was presented with me. So, of course, on behalf of the Assembly, as I mentioned before, we're really excited to see Hilna Wig to move on this initiative. As we have heard from the others today, of course, it's bridging the digital divide for the Mi'kmaq communities. Means opening up for advanced education and professional opportunities for our youth, particularly in the sciences. You know, we talked about the Western sciences, we talk about the 2IC and how important it is, and how these both will come together. And I can see the classrooms now, how exciting it will be on the initiatives going back and forth, and how this will come about, and the things that they will learn in a very quick time. So that's really exciting. We know, of course, that the outcomes of this program and today's announcement, we will see our youth leading and building in the capacity. We all need to flourish in shaping theirs as well as our futures for the tomorrow. So it's going to be exciting where we're going to be in another 10, 15 years. With the guidance and the expertise from the world-class institutions and educational advisors, there will be new pathways opening up to ensure our youth can become both science and technology pioneers for many levels. Among the incredible aptitudes to the Mikmaq Digital Education Initiative was one core aspect that I was so pleased to learn was that this program is being organized and being led by our Indigenous people. Promoting our scientific capacities and knowledge is the core principle of the Mi'kmaq Rights Initiative as well. And we recognize that the programs like the Qualitative Digital Educational Initiative, key is how we will cultivate and expand opportunities for this in the next generation to come. So the next generation to come, there's so much opportunities, and we're so excited that today that we all are here to share this new announcement. So, Walalio, and thank you very much.
Walal and Sagama. Now, stars have always been very special to the Mi'kmaq people, and for that matter, all Indigenous people around the world. They, amongst the others, have formed the cornerstone of one of the tenets of our science. We are therefore thrilled that the Canadian Space Agency, Canadian Space Agency, will be participating and sharing their expertise of robotics to the Mi'kmaq children throughout Nova Scotia. And a very special guest has prepared something special.
Hello everyone, my name is David Saint-Jacques. I'm an astronaut, a space traveler with the Canadian Space Agency. But for the next few months, you can call me David. I'm honored to have been given a Mi'kmaq name by your community and to invite you to come on a journey with me. Before being an astronaut, I had the chance of working as a family doctor in a small Inuit village on Hudson's Bay. And it's always a great privilege and a lot of fun for me to work with Indigenous people. Later this year, I'll be going to space for the first time. I will live and work on board the International Space Station for 6 months. Right now, though, I'm a student, just like you. I'm training for my mission in Houston, Texas, and in Star City, Russia, learning all the things I need to know to be successful as an astronaut. All astronauts learn the basics of robotics. Robots are crucial in space to do tasks that are too dangerous for humans. I've been learning to use Canadarm2, the huge Canadian robotic arm on station. It's as long as a school bus. Canadarm2 built the space station by putting together its modules like building blocks. Today, we use it to do things like catch visiting spaceships. Over the next few months, you'll be meeting with experts from the Canadian Space Agency who will teach you everything you need to know about space robots. Robots are fascinating. Think about all the things that robots can do to help people both in space and on Earth. If you were to build a robot, what would it do? I can't wait to hear what you can imagine. I always loved science, adventures, and traveling, and I always understood that science and technology would be the tools to help me explore our world and the universe beyond it. When I was a young child, I saw one of those photos of the Earth from the moon. It made me dream. Having a dream gave me the drive to stay fit, learn languages, travel, study, and do everything I could to succeed in reaching the hopes I had for my life. Those dreams led me to push beyond the limits of what I thought was possible for myself, and led me, ultimately, to becoming an astronaut. What's your dream? How will you use science in your own adventures? Will you create inventions to make life better here on Earth? Whatever you dream, I hope that it leads you to reach for the stars.
Now, for children and youth through this distinctive Inuig-led initiative, in addition to our journey of learning shared with David St. Jacques, and the Canadian Space Agency, Mikmaq children over the next 18 months will also be engaged in further opportunities to engage in coding and robotics with Acadia University Robotics Program. Now, our next speaker, Gary Walsh, is the director of the Robotics Challenge and running both a successful RoboFest and the first Lego League. How about a big round of applause? Our next speaker, Gary Walsh.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed an honor for me to be here. Honored guests, ministers, leaders, elders, parents, friends, families, and the reason we're all here, the youth. I've been fortunate enough to live my life in that world. I never ever did get out of school. Once I graduated from grade 12, then I became a teacher, a principal, and now director of robotics at Acadia. So school has been my life, all my life. And it is important for me to focus on three things today. Number one, the fact that we are so happy to be part of this organization. When we became part of this partnership, it really added to the program that we have. Right now, presently, we're in every single school board in the province. Now we'll be in every Indigenous school and community in the province. This will be so much fun for everybody. It's important. The youth of today are entitled to this. However, it doesn't always happen right away, but in Nova Scotia, we tend to lead the way. Very good for us. Thank you very much. And secondly, and this may be very hard to believe, but this focuses on the adults. When we go out there and we try to get people to make this program happen, all we need is some adults to spend time with the youth. So in all of our competition teams that are around the province, the adults that spend time with those teams You don't do anything except provide good guidance. You don't do the coding. You don't do the programming. You don't even get to touch the robot. I mean, after all, if you give the kids the robot, they're not going to give it back, right? And that's how the program is based. It's totally youth-centered. So the adults, some of our best coaches, have never, ever touched the robot, never touched the computer. The students do that. That's crucial. And thirdly, as part of Acadia Robotics, we're going to provide support, and that support will be to, yes, different teachers throughout the province, as well as all the teams throughout the province, to bring this to the point where all of the youth, especially thank you to this program for bringing everything together, because this is province-wide. Every province is waiting for Nova Scotia to blaze the trail. And thanks to everybody. Thank you so much for letting us be part of this great partnership. Thank you.
Once again, thank you very much, Gary. Rooted in teaching and exploring the many varied digital applications in the realm of science, it is important for all our children to know just how much is possible. Now, a little former Cape Breton boy is incredibly happy to share this, just as is possible when you follow the captures your heart and mind in science.
Hi, my name is Art MacDonald, and I grew up in Sydney, Nova Scotia. In 2015, I was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics for measurements about fundamental microscopic particles called neutrinos. Through our measurements, we were able to change the basic laws of physics at a very fundamental level, and also understand how the sun burns in great detail by detecting neutrinos emitted from the nuclear reactions that power the sun. When I was a boy in Cape Breton, I was inspired in math and science by my high school math teacher, Mr. Bob Chafe at Sydney Academy. This led me to go on to Dalhousie University and study physics, which set me on the road, ultimately, to the Nobel Prize. Today, I continue to be active in research with a team of scientists at the Snow Lab underground research facility near Sudbury, Ontario. It is 2 kilometers underground in order to avoid the cosmic rays that bombard the surface of the Earth but are removed by the rock above us. This enables us to study very penetrating particles like neutrinos and dark matter thought to be present in our galaxy and going through us in very large numbers. The low radioactivity in the laboratory gives us the opportunity to make measurements. Neutrinos or dark matter particles almost never interact in our bodies. They don't interact in the Earth above us, but we can observe them with very large detectors containing ultra-pure materials like heavy water or liquid argon. And in these detectors, we see occasionally faint bursts of light that enable us to infer that these particles are present and to learn about their properties. If we are now able to observe dark matter, it would be of major significance scientifically, because dark matter particles are thought to make up about 26% of our universe, but up until now they have never been detected. So I'd like to encourage every Mi'kmaq student to engage in science and math through the program that's being announced today. When I was a boy in Sydney, I had no idea that I could be involved in such fascinating work. Just follow your interests, work hard, and anything will be possible for you, as it was for me. Good luck.
Wow, it's just getting exciting from the ministers to our elders to the best of the best astronauts. Wow, it's amazing. But wait, there's more. This is a multidimensional education initiative while focused on inspiring and advancing digital skills in education. Also, we'll be embracing creativity. Now, creativity fields also involve science found in some of the most unlikely places, like animation. I would like to introduce to you Philip Stamp, the head of Halifax studio of DHX, one of Canada's most successful animation studios. Originally from St. John's, Mr. Philip has worked on many studios across Canada, US, including Lucasfilms. Yeah, those old Star Wars guys. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Philip Stamp.
Hi there. My name is Philip Stamp, and I do represent DHX Media. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to come and speak to all of you here, and in particular to the kids that are here, as well as who are Skyping in from their schools. I grew up in St. John's, Newfoundland, and I always loved to draw, and I loved telling stories, and I had a real passion for it. And I had a lot of other interests in school, but those were drawing and telling stories was where my passion was. And I never could have dreamed that there were opportunities with that passion for a career. And yet, as our previous video suggested, that if you follow your passion, there's many things that are possible. The passions that I had have taken me around the world, and certainly most notably in that was an opportunity to work in Marin County, California at Skywalker Ranch, where I worked on 2 different Star Wars projects. One was a feature film and one was an animated series. And after traveling around, I had an opportunity to come back here to Halifax, Nova Scotia and work with DHX Media, and that, in fact, has been the greater privilege of the many wonderful opportunities that I've had in my career. Here we have a studio of over 250 incredibly talented digital artists who create television shows that go out and entertain kids and audiences all around the world. And within the digital space, whether it's coding, and we have programmers and developers that work with us, or people that just work drawing on their tablets, the opportunities that are there for people who are passionate about being artists and working in a digital space are almost limitless, I should say. And as a picture is worth 1,000 words, I thought that I would show you a few pictures just indicating some of the things that we have created at our studio here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So that's just a little bit of a sample of some of the shows and projects that we've worked on the studio, at the studio here in Halifax. And one of the things that I think is a really important part of knowing where you want to go and what you want to do is simply being aware of the opportunity. When I was growing up in Newfoundland, I had no idea that there was any way that I could get into an industry like animation. I had no idea that it was even that people got paid for it. I thought it was something people just did because they liked to do it. Because as a kid, I used to sit and watch these things, you know, watch Bugs Bunny with my dad, and we'd laugh and really enjoy it. And when I was a teenager and I was passionate about drawing my own comic strips, I had a family friend who told me that I should pursue this and that there were opportunities for me to pursue this as a career. And I'm so thankful that I was just told that this was a possibility for me, because it led me down that path. Just knowing that it was possible and that it wasn't that far away. Now, it wasn't that far away, but it has taken me all around the globe. I worked for years in Singapore, in California, and in Ireland. I've been all around the world with this. But you don't have to go that far. You don't have to go much farther than Spring Garden Road, where we're located. It's here, and it's a wonderful, wonderful industry full of incredibly talented people who are very, very talented technically, very talented in terms of software and writing code, writing scripts, as well as people who just love to draw and have access to the technology where they can apply those skills. And one of the wonderful things within the scope of getting the opportunity to work in this industry is getting to work with other really wonderful artists and storytellers. I've had a great good fortune over the last few years here in Halifax to work with a wonderful storyteller, a wonderful digital animator and artist who, before coming to Nova Scotia, or before he and I worked together, he was a director on an animated series called Wapus Bay. Cameron Lazada is an incredibly talented artist and storyteller, originally from Saskatchewan. I'd like to show you now a little bit of a project that he's responsible for, and then invite him to come and say a couple of words to you.
Tansi, kita tamskat na uta Wapus Bay. Niyo marivin, uta nuigin Wapus Bay. Mehtito tamsta taga kay sino ag wigawag. WapusBay.com mesjidki goy ayaw kams kami. Magapok kapanto naman. Pimot sige tag. Naniwih tinumutay pinagi.
Hi there. As Phil said, my name is Cam Lazat. I'm a Métis filmmaker from originally from Saskatchewan. I got my start as a comic strip artist, and I did that for about a year before I decided I wanted to see my characters actually move. So with the help from an Aboriginal organization in Saskatchewan, I ended up at the Vancouver Film School, where I studied classical animation. After graduation, I ended up back in Saskatchewan, where I worked on the series Wapus Bay from its beginning until the end of its run on APTN. And that series did two things for me. It cemented my passion for animation because it was so well written and so well made. But the second thing that it did for me, which is probably the most important, is it really ignited that fire for me to learn more about my culture. And that is one thing that I'm really grateful for. Thank you.
Before I wrap it up, as I was asked two things. One was to keep it short, and the other was actually just to talk a little bit about how many opportunities there were, how many chances there are for kids, you know, and young people in school. How many jobs are there? And it's almost limitless. Since 2012, the animation studio here, one of the four bigger animation studios here in Halifax that I represent, grew from 65 people to 250 people in 4 years. It's a growing industry. There's a lot of opportunities. There's plenty of opportunities home here, and there's plenty of opportunities if you want to travel across Canada and see what's there. If you've got a passion for art and for storytelling, and this is something that you feel drawn to, there's absolutely a space there for you to pursue that. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Wow, that's truly amazing. Now, engaging leading Canadian scientists, universities, colleges, and organizations, Inuig's Digital Education Initiative will also involve teaching and inspiring students in the areas like artificial intelligence and big data. Holy, that's what we all need, eh? Big data. That's what they need at the band office. Now, to speak on that, we have Stan Matwin. Stan Matwin is a professor of the computer science at the University of Dalhousie, and Stan is one of the Canadians' leading expertise in the field of big data. So without further ado, how about a big round of applause for Stan?
All right. So instead of trying to explain to you what big data is and isn't, let me start with a little example of something that we do that actually works. And a bit of a background on that. So before coming here to Dal 5 years ago, I didn't know that every ship has to carry a GPS device that constantly sends a signal, and that signal says, this is me, I'm that ship, kind of a license plate, and I'm here, you know, the coordinates, and there's possibly some other info. And the interesting thing is that every ship sends that signal by international agreements. Every larger ship must be equipped with that device. It goes up, it's collected by a satellite. There is, interestingly, a Canadian company that's one of the global players in this market, puts all this data together. It's called Exact Earth. We work with them, and then we are privileged to use this data to look at it and answer all kinds of interesting questions. And let's have the video now that shows you a little bit of what we do. This is 1 minute.
Select each vessel to view details and download tracking information. For a detailed instruction demo, and to try the app yourself, check out the Fishing Activity Viewer. For more information about the machine learning techniques used to produce the fishing information, or to inquire about account permissions, check out the Institute for Big Data Analytics website.
So anyways, the idea is that you see these ships moving, and the color, it was brown and white. The color tells you these are only fishing ships. The color tells you whether this ship is actually fishing or not at that time.
For non-fishing vessels is on average.
Yeah. All right. So this is really interesting because there is kind of artificial intelligence and machine learning underneath all of that that builds what we call a model that tells when a ship is fishing or not. And why is this interesting? Because then, for the first time, we can answer in an objective way the question of how much fish is being taken out globally from the oceans. There is no other way but doing these things. And we do this, of course, collaborating with a fish ecology group here at Dal. And I think we can answer this question soon. And that's just one example of what you can do with big data. So I really think that parts of big data can actually be taught to young people and can be used this way. And what's really interesting today is that because of open source code, open data, and the cloud, almost everybody can easily do interesting applications. And let me give you an example. We had the world's top global congress in big data here in Halifax last year. We managed to talk them to come here between San Francisco and London. And one of the talks was by a 17-year-old young woman from high school in Bronx, New York. who wrote this award-winning paper presented in the conference. That, of course, created all kinds of little logistics problems because it turned out that in Halifax, a 17-year-old cannot be in the same room in which wine is served, and we had that in some of the sessions. So we had to find creative solutions for little problems like that. But I'm telling you this because you don't really need to be a PhD or even a graduate student to do these types of things. It's really cool. A lot of it is in visualizing and showing data, and we are very excited to think how to bring this into this coding and robotics program that we are here to launch. And so, so let me tell you one thing that Marnie asked me to share with you. And I was trying to think, you know, what was it in my life that helped me to come here from totally the opposite side of the world and get to the top of my field. And, you know, if I think back what it was actually mathematics, and, you know, algebra and geometry. And really the fact that I was privileged to have good teachers and teachers that actually showed me that not only this is useful, which is what we are talking about here, but it's actually beautiful, you know. And I actually remember to this day how I showed my 6th grade daughter at that time the proof that a triangle has 180 degrees. It's actually a very easy geometric exercise. And she said, wow, this is really cool. And I think we should do more of that. We should convince our youth that math is not just adding and formulas and sort of problems from textbooks, but actually there is an aesthetic and beauty to mathematics, just like there is a beauty to poetry, to paintings, and math is this. And it also has this unique quality that it actually tells you the truth, you know. We can have politicians arguing different points in a very interesting way. We can have businessmen presenting their case. But in math, you can actually have a group of people from around the world that have never met. They come into a room, and in an hour, they all agree that something is true or not, and they can convince everybody else. And there's no discussion. And this is beautiful for me about math. And math is, of course, at the foundations of coding and robotics and big data. So you guys are, I think, very lucky to be at the beginning of a really exciting journey. We hope, of course, that at least some of you will come to start the journey or continue it with us at DAL. But of course, the time is incredibly fruitful for you to get into all these fields that will offer you an incredible wealth of opportunities. And it's great to see this program being launched here, and I'm sure it will do well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, who wouldn't want rocks named after them? Kind of special ones that when you think of it. Now, so without further ado, let me introduce to you Starman, who will be part of a very special Ulnuig program working with our children. Rob Cardinal, an astronomer who has worked with NEOSSAT. Don't know what that means, but he will explain it. Now, overseeing the development of the state-of-the-art software of high-performance computer systems that search for asteroids and his unique moving object distinction software, resulting in the discovery of 2 comets that now bear his name. Without further ado, how about a big round of applause for Rob Cardinal, my other identical cousin.
Okay, hello. Well, thank you very much. This is a huge honor to be here today. I want to thank our elders and our organizing people, Marnie, Chris, Jeff, everyone at Ulnuig, to bring this event together, and of course our honorable members of Parliament who have made this funding available. It's a huge gift, and I'm going to talk about gifts. But first I want to talk a little bit about stories. Because science really is nothing more than our current state of knowledge of the story of how we got to be here. And the story of how we got to be here is important because it allows us to decide where we're going to go. So I've been told that we're running a little bit late and to speed it up, so I'm going to talk a little bit fast. But actually, you'll be able to tell when I'm saying something interesting because I'm going to say it slower. So science sometimes is a little bit intimidating to people, especially the math end of it. And we really need to do a better job as educators to dispel this intimidation part of science and math, that it's hard, that it's difficult, that you have to be some kind of brainiac to be able to comprehend and help out in the new digital economy, because this certainly isn't the case. You don't, as was pointed out by our previous presenter, you don't need a PhD, you don't need to be a graduate student or even an expert to actually do some very, very useful things. So I'm not a PhD, I'm not a Nobel laureate, I'm not even a graduate student. In fact, I'm going to go back a little bit to my own story and tell you that I didn't even graduate high school. Okay, I'm a high school dropout. I lived on the streets. I was poor. I was depressed. I was addicted to drugs and alcohol, and this has all happened when I was about 17. And so I was kicked out of my home. I was kicked out of school, and I essentially ended up on the streets with nothing. And by the time I was 19. This became a crisis situation, which was threatening my life. And it was through the hands of many people, and many people encouraging me and helping me to try and put my life back together. And I think the most important thing that's ever happened to me is the encouragement that I've been given at various points in my life has always led me forward. And I do have comets named after me now. So can you imagine what I was thinking when I was 15 and going off the rails? If somebody were to suggest that I would work for 15 years with the Canadian Space Agency on a space, it's called NEOSAT, by the way, Jeff. NEOSAT. NEOSAT was a microsatellite, complete Canadian project, and I joined this project after graduating university. It was designed to find and study asteroids from a space-based platform. So it was actually a space telescope. Very few people know that Canada has more than one space telescope operational in space right now. So NEOSAT was trying to piece together the story of how our solar system was formed by learning about asteroids. So asteroids and comets are the leftover bit of dust left over from the formation of the solar system. And so we've got a representation here on the screen, which is the sky over Halifax right now. And I'm just going to do something interesting, because what I find is very common when I talk about astronomy is that people think, okay, well, the sun is this really big hot ball of gas over there. It's out there in space. It's so far away. I have nothing to do with it. You know, I might get a suntan or a burn if I'm outside too long. But really, we feel quite separate. We feel like we are not part of that thing. We don't think about space weather, although space weather actually affects us all the time and could affect us very, very disastrously. In fact, if a super flare went off and knocked out the internet, can you imagine if your cell phone didn't work? I mean, this is a terrifying idea. Not to mention the power would go out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to reconnect us with the sky. If we didn't have an atmosphere, and I guess we wouldn't have, if we didn't have to breathe, we could turn off the atmosphere, and this is what the sky would look like all the time. And then if we made the planet go away, we're basically just hanging in space all the time. So I'm gonna speed this up a little bit, because the sky is always moving. It's not the sky that's moving, it's us moving through the sky. So we're constantly floating in the sky and orbiting a star called the sun. And this is, I'm just gonna turn on, we've all told stories, every culture in the world has told stories about the sky. And stories are just representations of information. And this is the age-old teaching method of First Nations all over the earth, and First cultures everywhere use stories to pass on knowledge of the sky. So what I'm bringing up here, and you'll see it as it comes around, I'll just zoom out so we can see it all here. So these are representations of Ojibwe stories about the sky. And you know, every culture in the world has a cosmology of where they came from. And most of it has to do with the sky. And scientifically, our modern cosmology actually proves to us that, yes, in fact, we do come from the sky. We are made out of stardust. And eventually, that's where we will end up. But we're always in the sky, okay? So I always like to tell people, you know, you're connected with the sun in a very deep way. And our Nobel laureate there, who studies neutrinos, deep underground, is detecting particles that left the sun, you know, minutes ago. Whereas the sunlight that is reaching us took about 1 million years to get out from the core of the sun to reach the surface, and then a few more minutes to get to the planet. But the neutrinos are coming out directly without any interference. So story is what's important. Now, this gift that is being bestowed upon numerous groups, and Ulnuwig in particular, to bring students up to speed on technology and mathematics. I've noticed I was building time they were the state of the art, and 5 years later I have a single computer that can do the work of hundreds from 5 years ago. And so these are amazing times to get involved and interested in this story of science. So so stories have a beginning, middle, and an end, normally. And if you miss the beginning, you kind of don't understand the middle, right? So it's very important that we get the youth involved in this story from the beginning, early on in their education, to understand and contribute to writing this. So we are all writing this story. We are all scientists from the day we're born. And I just want to, you know, one of the main components of this education initiative will be robotics and coding. Now, coding, everything is a code. These stories that we tell about the sky are written in a language, and we're using English right now. So English is a code made up of 26 letters and a handful of punctuation marks. And with this small set of symbols, we can make millions of words, and we can use those millions of words to tell infinite number of stories. And that's interesting. The story of life on Earth is recorded in our DNA, and we all carry this DNA. It is common to all of the life that has ever existed on the planet. And it's written in a code consisting essentially of 4 letters. You know, the 4 essential enzymes that make up the proteins in our DNA. So coding with stories takes, you need rules, okay? And so one of the most fundamental concepts in coding is if. Now, if is incredibly important. An if statement in a code, in a computer program, says, if this is true, then do this. Or else if it isn't, do something else. So this concept of if, for our students, if only they had the access to the robotics, to the Lego sets, you know, maybe they could come up with something that nobody else has thought of, but only if they have that. It's a necessary and sufficient condition that they, if this is true, then we don't know what's going to happen. So normally when we're writing computer programs, we have to think ahead of the computer and say, okay, well, if this is true, I want the computer to do this or the robot to do that. And in every other situation, just, you know, don't do anything else. But we have to consider every situation prior to it actually happening. Now what's happening with the availability of huge amounts of data and incredibly fast computers and artificial intelligence, we're now trying to learn to write code that's going to decide what it's going to do on its own. And this is very interesting for me philosophically, which is one of my greatest passions is considering the philosophical implications of these things. But there are computer codes running right now, sometimes, you know, in autonomous vehicles, in these digital assistants, which produce outcomes which could not be predicted from any of the inputs. So we're writing computer programs now that will give us answers that are very useful, but we have no way of actually figuring out how that computer came up with that solution. So, you know, one of the least fun parts of computer programming is debugging, right? So a computer code essentially will always have errors, as somewhere along the way our thinking ahead has not, you know, uncovered every error, and we find bugs and we have to debug them. Well, there are computer codes now that whether or not they have bugs, we may never know, because we can't find them. There's fundamental changes in programming methodology which keeps that hidden from us. So this is very interesting philosophically, and I hope that it appeals to some of our young people. And I'd like to tell these young people, you know, that no matter your situation, you know, the availability of information and encouragement and help can help you to realize amazing things. And the other thing to remember is that it's a gift, you know? You need to have that humility to understand, you know, I didn't do that. It was given to me, right? Everything is a gift. From the day you're born, you show up with nothing, and you know, you're kind of messy and you're kind of ugly and you make a lot of noise, but we have to, you know, support you and give you everything you need to succeed, right? And so everything in your life is a gift. And I think having that humility, you know, we think generally of gifts as something that we want because it's good, but everything is a gift. Whether or not it seems good at the time, in the future, it might make sense why a hardship came along to bring about another outcome that wouldn't have been able to be possible without the prior situation. So stories, languages, gifts, these are the things that is what science really is made out of, okay? Everyone comes along with their own story and their own understanding, and when we bring that all together, you know, as I've watched the event today and all our presentations, you know, some of it is about culture. We started with the wonderful drumming at the beginning, which really resonates, you know, not just physically in the room, but with me personally and spiritually, because learning about my culture as a Blackfoot person. Now, you call me Starman, but my actual Blackfoot name is Kakatosina, and it means Star Chief. And so the learning about my culture has been one of the most thrilling and at times depressing parts of my life. There is, of course, a common shared history in Canada with the First Nations, that, you know, essentially the worst part being the residential schools. And now we are in this age of reconciliation. So reconciliation, to me, is something that we all have to do personally. It's not oh, sorry about that. Oh, okay, well, I'll forgive you. You know, that it's got nothing to do with that. But working together and trying to not repeat any of what's happened in the past is one of the greatest gifts that we could possibly give to future generations. So understanding what went wrong in the past and how to avoid that is something that couldn't have happened without that. So what I really want to leave you with today, I'm just going to wrap this up real quick, is whatever the stories and whatever the gifts that you have, you also have a fundamental gift of power. And the power is choices, the power to make decisions based on the information you have. And where that starts is with your words. So Sean Atleo, who was our former Chief of First Nations, Grand Chief, Sean Atleo said it in this way to me. He said, and it was taught to him by his father, who had learned it from his elders, is you can have what you say. You can have what you say. This is an ancient teaching, I'm sure, in every culture from around the world. But what it means, it doesn't mean you get to have whatever it is you say. You can have what you say. If you think about that, it doesn't mean you will have what you say, but you can't have it unless you say it. So if you say, well, this is too hard, I'll never get over this, I'll never be able to do that, well, you can have what you say. But if you say, this is a really hard challenge, I'm going to try to use every resource that I have to overcome this challenge, then again, you can have what you say. So that is what I'd like to leave you with, those words. And encouragement is so important, and it's as simple as opening your mouth to encourage somebody to go in the direction of their passions. So it's a great honor to be asked to join with Ulnawig to help with this digital education initiative, and I'm really excited about the future of it. And it brings together so many parts of my previous life that it's starting to make sense now. Oh, that's why. That's why. Because I can help others and encourage them. So thank you very much.
To end and thank you for all coming is a very special announcement and a beginning of what will be transformational journey, not only for our Mi'kmaq children, our communities, but also an extension as we, the Ilnuig, shares these new teachings to all the Indigenous children throughout Atlantic Canada and across the country, online and in mirrored in other ways and mediums. We would like to finish by sharing with you that everyone's involved in the creation and delivery of this very special educational coding, digital, and unique program has put their heart into it. And as the saying goes, a picture tells 1,000 words. Roll the hearts. Now, as we begin in prayer, we're going to do a closing prayer. At this time, I want to invite Patsy Paul Martin of Millbrook First Nation to do a closing prayer for us.
Ogisuk, mega the Wallaliek, just wool mawaliek, let it. Well, that's the age of look at Kisarasik. And Bankamlam the book chick Pascasic, Deji will up to Nakoi Nemidu. Well, that's the Bantar well, Sidwaninal. Kalukul Guswakan Tunina Hojial. Kiziko, cheat, are not halty deok. Kiduglu and double Guswakan. Albamuska jiway. Tahoy Kisadu. Well, Darcy, I could do muy well not, Asia Tignida York, Kisadu, Tahoy cheat, Kisiwak at Disney well meganig. Well, Amijuajish, Kiginama sultijik, Del Sabewik, Ginu, Delin Louis sultig. Well, Darcy, Del Maulugudig, a well Darcy Dejibul Kisaduk, Chidel meganig, Chit Kinisian nach. Nadliash.
Well, Alio, thank you guys very much. Well, that's a wrap.